This is Where the Renegade Witches blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done. Of course, go to the Word Renegade website, see the phone number there. Hit me up in reference to 101 monthly lessons, 101 lessons, and including work. Understand if you email me, you're not going to get a response because I barely read my emails. You have to text me and say I emailed you. However, sending me information on Instagram is fine, in addition to texting me. If I don't respond to you, don't think I'm ignoring you or being rude or disrespectful. I just get a lot of energies, but I do read everything, okay? I will keep you guys posted in reference to 101 monthly lessons. However, it doesn't stop you from hitting me up for energies working with you closely every single day, every hour. Trust and believe. I get that shit. Sometimes I'm on a 101 for hours dealing with certain frequencies and foundations. Understand I do energies from what I call spiritual role play to deprogramming to all type of stuff. Hell, court, whatever, everything dealing with spiritual care, occultism, or even developing your own spiritual frequency, seeing where you at, even imaging, sometimes going around in circles with some individuals, trying to see where you at, business aspects, pulling your frequencies. I don't necessarily believe in working for people. I believe for you to have your own business, as we should. So just understand, and of course, occultism, but understand that work in connection to 101s is separate, but however, at most of the times it's incorporated, but at a different cost. So understand what that is. Some people ask me, do I do supposed readings and so on? That's also understand 101 monthly or 101 lessons. Depending, you have to specify what it is, but my supposed readings, as you guys call it, is way different from what other people do, because it is a breakdown of every frequency of what it is. I don't do motherfucking birth charts. I don't do natal charts. I don't do all of that other bullshit. But however, art is occultism. Occultism is a motherfucking art. And you already know that Wayward is about that revenge, redemption, responsibility, that motherfucking spell work, because you know I'm an underground occultist. And this energies that, or this platform is about occultism. Some people ask me, why don't you get on TikTok? Because TikTok have a certain target market that I don't feel like being in. But I understand that some of my frequencies is on there, and that's okay, and that's cool in the game, right? However, I was looking at some energies, right? And I'm wondering what the fuck is going on. And I've been talking a lot about us being women. And we should be under the frequencies of what I call civil disobedience. And we are not under civil disobedience. In this country, we call the United States, we should be under civil disobedience as women. But I'm talking to black women because I am a black woman, or however you guys want to call it. If I'm getting mixed company, understand you should be under civil disobedience as a woman. I went back to the Old Testament, and you know, I go back to the Bible and I just pull and push and twist it and turn it in all type of ways, right? I want to go back to the Old Testament because I want to talk about the Eve effect. Remember, I talk about Lord, I talk about God, I talk about the likeness of woman and creating man in the likeness of woman, but also creating man out of desperateness and not understanding the different matrix system that creates him, because you created a man who penis is just an enlarged clitoris and his scrotum is just a sewed up vagina, right? We just being funny. We just talking. And I looked at the energies of woman equals Lord created life. But man, who is God, tried to punish woman. When we go back to the Eve effect and we go back to the Garden of Eden, we're just going to say giggles and laughs as Eve talks to the snake, which is Lord, the snake is trying to enlighten her to say civil disobedience. Because you more than what that man God tells you you are. Because he's conflicting fear in you. And you are made in the likeness of me. You're marvelous. You are the real capital her. Not him, not the capital him, but the capital her. Because you are created in the likeness of me. Nothing more, nothing less. You can withstand pain. You can withstand torture. Right? But we have this man called God conflicting fear in you, making you afraid of the tree of knowledge. But you're a woman, you are the tree of knowledge, you are the tree of death, and you are the tree of wisdom. Knowledge, life, and death. All the above. Right? But this man that they call God became a jealous God and said, I don't like this woman. She has too much power. She can withstand pain. So what I will do is put more pain on her. When you have children, you're going to have pain. When you have your periods, you're going to have pain. And the snake said, it ain't going to work because you're in the likeness of me. Then I'm just going to cause fear. I'm going to mentally abuse you. I'm going to verbally abuse you. I'm going to physically abuse you. So he tried to throw pain on her physical abuse. He verbally abused her. He mentally fucked with Eve. And then he got his crony Adam involved, who sold her out, which caused her to bow down to man and follow every bit of his bullshit. And there are some women in this universal soul who believe that they have the upper hand on men. No, you're just Eve. You feel that you have to have a certain sex appeal. You got to have this, you got to have that. And you have him wrapped around your hand. No, you're Eve. Because you would understand as a woman, you don't need to bow down to a man. You don't need to fall out over a man. You don't need his energy. You don't need any of that. You would understand what he is made for. Right? But man created fear. And if you put a woman in a position of discomfort, she will become fearful. And fear and pain together is called torment and suffering. Right? There's a whole bunch of Eves in the universe who are under God. If God created fear that breaks a woman down, and the fear causes a woman to be traumatized that sits in the subconscious, that means every time a woman goes through something, it subconsciously sits in the back of her brain to be fearful, right? And that's what we see in this universal soul. That's what we see in pimping and pandering. That's what we see in a lot of these men. We're going to cause fear in these bitches. And we're going to combine fear with pain. And we're going to break these bitches down. I come to this because I have to go back to Witch Patrol. And I want to walk in a way that I don't give a fuck of being a hater, harassed, and all that shit. We have a person that what we call a social media entertainer. And during Witch Patrol, it was hell on earth. Did we come at her? Fuck yeah. Do I give a fuck? Fuck no. Was I lying? Hell no. And I would say when I originally, before I even got on the scene, I used to watch this person and I thought they were very cute, especially with their 99-cent store hacks. I thought her daughters were cute. This is when she was plump, right? This is when she was more, you know, in energy. She had a different energy. And then she made sure to lose that weight, and she thought being a skinny helps her be a bitch. I guess she said when I had that meat on me, I was fat and jolly. I lose this weight, I'm gonna be a Pisces bitch. So when we came after her, not because of what she was doing, it is because of the background of the energies that was happening as back then. You had a lot of witches who were under the ranch or under some kind of cult or coming out of somewhere. In Texas, there's a whole cult energy going on. From motherfuckers separating themselves from the Potter House, doing cults. You have all of these different break-offs, even different break-offs of Eastern stars. You have this shit now. I remember it was so many fucking groups going on in Texas. Bullshit, right? I remember going undercover in a group and somebody leaked out information to me and I quoted it in my video, and the lead in the group called me some kind of bald-headed whatever, and I went and talked about them and they had to apologize. I said, y'all just doing all, it was just all type of shit, right? And they were talking about, in some of these groups, they will have, I'm going to call them side rooms, where I guess you could see, I guess visually see some of these people, allegedly, but they will have side rooms and talk to certain girls. And with those certain girls, they'll persuade them. So it was like a, some kind of energies that was going on, that they'll create these groups to recruit from the Level Up Club on and on and on, or just to create a house, we'll call it. Anyway, as time progressed, we were at it with these people. And remind you, I'm not an investigator like the one who used to be part of Witch Patrol and so on. She found all that information, backgrounds. And one of them Ooh, you mess with this bitch right here. You heard what I said. You don't know what you was just like, you was like, what the fucks? That it got to the point that, what is YouTube? What's happening here, and who's behind YouTube? That they supported a lot of this stuff. It didn't seem like, YouTube was just a distant and this is just, them creating their frequency. It made it appear that YouTube was part of the bullshit. So much so that it became so crazy that the minions would make up shit to get your channel removed. Just make up shit. And the shit wasn't even true. And then when you would dispute it with YouTube, YouTube would validate it. But it was fake as fuck. You'd be like, what? And this is the energy with Ashera Star Goddess. Ashera 7. I'm going to get to talking. So her minions, yeah, I'm a hater. So in this energy, there was a lot of investigation done about her background. And then after her, Mickey uprooted. And I keep saying, people, I know Mickey. I met that woman in Vegas. I'm going to stand on it. I know her. She thought I was a hooker. This was this was a minute ago. This was like in 2012. And I was just sitting at the bar. She swooped up on me. Who are you? And I'm like, oh. And she explained exactly who she was. She was like, I'm from Texas. My name is da-da-da-da. We was talking. I like Mickey better than Ashera. Anyway, that's when we start finding out, who was that lady? I'm about to call her Mama D. What's her name? Well, anyway, Ashera had a sister brother that was off the hinges. Then you start to understand the background. That Ashera's mother wasn't shit. And it was just her mother was an army hoe. Ashera didn't know who her father was. Then we found out later he was, I think, a Puerto Rican. It was just a whole bunch of mess. Then we found out that husband she was with, she stole him from his other wife, a light-skinned plus-size woman. He had a whole family and he was making $75,000 a year. Then that's when we start finding her on MySpace and this other database that was like a prostitution website, but it was really obscure. I remember when Ashera sent some chick out at me who was from that website. I was like, oh, okay, and started a whole bunch of drama. They would send fake clients to me and then turn around and try to dispute the transactions. And I could tell what it is, or just weird shit. I remember when she called me a roach, and I think she called me a whale, something she called me. All type of shit, just all type of shit. Then she had her daughters try to mimic me, just all type. It was just weird shit. And I always said, I said, Ashera's a pretty woman. She's very cute. But I could tell she wanted to be a star. She wanted to be in Hollywood. And she would absorb other energies of people to become, right? What's making me talk about Ashera is because I've been bombarded with her wholesale colognes and perfumes again. I said, oh, they're back at it again. God damn, we're going backwards in time when she was selling all that wholesale makeup, wholesale shit, wholesale that, wholesale. And when I mean wholesale, it's a distribution. Like I can do it. I could be like, okay, I'm going to buy this, create a box for it, send me a tester smell, got you. Okay, I want that. We all can do it, right? Urban Outfitters, they do it all the time, especially with their items that they have, their little trinkets. Their candles. They buy it from that Alibaba all the time. Nothing wrong with that. It's just what it is, what it ain't. So I said, damn, I'm seeing it on Facebook. I seen it on Instagram. And I'm looking at like, okay, whatever, get your money. But something in me was like, because my real issue is not what Ashera is doing, it's the energies around it. And it's not her, it's who is sponsoring. Because I said, whoever it is, they're sponsoring the fuck out of her. They're really trying to push her. I respect it. However, I have an issue. I have an issue that there's a certain age group of human beings, of women who are Eves, from the age of little girls of 12 to 30 mainly, who hangs on to every word Ashera is talking, and it is dangerous. It was enough before that women and trans men, and what I mean trans men are men who transformed themselves into women, was following the philosophies. If you guys notice, a lot of these level up energies have breeded out a lot of these, what we call the trans. It's giving them too much insight of how to manipulate the man energy or to collect money. The usual energies of trans was always, I'm going to be really real, kind of scummy. But now it is really pushed to be kind of the hierarchy and the face. Trans have always been around, but it was always considered taboo. We already know this. It was just a secret society. Right? But when you're hearing more and more of a lot of these trans, especially black trans, you will find they had a jealousy with their mother, sister, cousin, female cousin, and all. It's always something connected to femininity and jealousy. And then we let certain people be our stylists, hairstylists, and whatever, and they're just watching the scope of us. Well, a lot of that level up shit, which is connected to Ashera, which is connected to Atlanta, a lot of that was going on that birthed a lot of this energy. And it birthed prostitution. Okay? What is very detrimental right now is there are young ladies out here about to be dead, about to be kidnapped, about to be harmed, and it has happened. I've had many mothers reach out to me. I just had a spiritual constituents tell me some shit yesterday, and it's always connected to sprinkle. And that's a fucking reach. I said, excuse me. If you women are wondering how a lot of these black girls are getting murdered and kidnapped and going online, why don't you talk to Sprinkle? Just like that case with the alleged case with it's happening more and more with black girls talk about that they're going to date out their race, and they intentionally go after white boys and then end up dead. Talk to Sprinkle. I had a mother hit me up, said her daughter spoke to Sprinkle or listening to Sprinkle Sprinkle on TikTok and gave her the whole playbook of allegedly of how to get a date. Daughter followed the playbook, ended up dead. Do you know how many of Sprinkle Sprinkle people watch and end up in a bad place? Because the first time we heard about it was the trans person who almost got murdered, and another person who almost got who was dead. And Sprinkle Sprinkle said, I don't have nothing to do with that, because they was trying to make her liable for giving out information like that without disclaimers. And I always said to myself, where is this coming from? And why would somebody listen to a woman who's supposed to be a married woman? I used to have married women hit me up talking about that they follow some of her philosophies, believing that it was going to make their marriage hotter. And their husbands still didn't want them. Her husband had to step away. I don't even know, because I don't look at her like that. Did they ever get back together, or did he end up divorcing her? Because remember, she had to move out the house allegedly, and she was living in a room somewhere. I don't know. And then you guys were just kind of looking at the background. I'm just all up in the business. I'm just talking a little backstory. So on this one, I'm going to blame the Sprinkle Sprinkle, because some of you guys are mesmerized by her beauty. And you swear it's an expert talking. And nobody is an expert. I'm just saying, put a disclaimer on it. Mothers, aunties, grandmothers, great-grandmother, whoever, watch the girls in your family. Watch what they're watching. Go on their TikTok, see who they're following. I'm hearing too many stories of 12 and 13-year-old girls getting trains ran on them, thinking that they're going to get some money and shit based off of what Sprinkle Sprinkle is talking about, and thinking that these little boys have money, but they're out here dating grown men at 12 and 13. It's been going on, but it's more than ever. And mothers are saying that they're finding out their daughters are watching her and trying to go after guys who are way older, even in their 30s. And these perverted ass men are having sex, of course, with these junior high girls and high school girls for a little bit of change. There are whole cults who follows Sprinkle Sprinkle and then disperse to go in the universe thinking they're going to find a rich man. But what you guys don't understand, and the gag is that the men are watching her. The men are already peeping you. You up in these men fucking DMs and shit, or trying to run after them, and they see you coming. Some of you women believe because in the entertainment world that these alleged dudes are out here messing with these hoes, and they marry hoes. That is industry hookups. But my main energy is the seriousness of what is going on. These little girls are getting on social media trying to push up on these older dudes, or pretending to be older and then going into situations and researching of how to find the next rich man. Because they want the name brand, they want the money. And yes, we can say it's been going on, but like I said, I'm talking about something indirect that they're looking at that's giving them the playbook. Then we're going to get into high school. Too many mothers are hitting me up saying, my daughter was looking at that 7 girl. And they doing A, B, C, and D. They're wearing a whole bunch of makeup. They doing this, they doing that. My son is transforming himself into a woman because he wants to get money. And he believes if he does this, he will get money. Well, okay. Yeah, but he's watching that, I'm going to keep saying the sprinkle, that's giving him the playbook. What's happening in this universe? Why are we not monitoring? My mom would be damned. I'm listening to someone like her. Somebody forwarded me something with an energy of a quinceañera. We got Latino girls out here dressed as skeletons and shit at a quinceañera and doing their work. And we got black girls out here listening to sprinkle being hoes about to get themselves murdered and kidnapped, and been getting themselves murdered and kidnapped and pretending getting on apps and being older and meeting these men and meeting men of other races to get money. Part of the competitiveness with now young women and older women is because of sprinkle. Some of that, I'm not going to say all, I'm just talking about her right now. I'm getting mothers who are saying, my daughter is in competition with me. They didn't look at this girl. And my daughter talking real shady to me. And I'm trying to teach her to be a young lady. And she's trying to say that, no, it's this, is that. This why this going on with you. Isn't her product called Hoax or Ho? French? With a sigil, with the X being a sigil. Palo sigil. Irish, because that can go all type of ways. Haitian. That's a sigil. Just yesterday, a spiritual constituent was telling me she was in a situation where she overheard this young woman who's 25 years old drinking with dudes almost 40 years old. The dudes were drunk and they were about to go to another location or drink some more, and these dudes were supposed to be in real estate, some kind of real estate group. So she made sure to basically be a predator and hunt these men out who she believed have money. And women, you have to be careful hunting for men with money, because they will treat you like shit. That's a whole other energy, right? Anyways, the young woman said, hey, I'll drive because you guys been drinking. The dude got mad with her, and I'm paraphrasing, but became belligerent, hit her, and called her a bitch. And then they got in a car accident. But this was the kicker. There was the other dude that was, I guess she was sitting in the front seat. Dude hit her and said, "Shut up, bitch." But the other dude behind her was like, "Yeah, bitch, shut up." Right? I said, "Oh no, she in danger." I said, "She got in that car." I said, what was it about to do? A threesome on her? Because that's the end thing. Any means necessary, right? So I guess she took the keys, got out the car, took the keys, ran somewhere. Ended up at her friend's house. The friend is, I guess, telling her to go back into the situation. And she's telling the friend something about she has to make sure her son is okay. You have a whole son and you messing around with some niggas that just called you a whole bitch about to get you caught up, huh? My spiritual constituents, see, this is not to be rude, but this is what we do. Because I tell my spiritual constituents, let me tell you something. If you see someone going the wrong way and you working with me, you say something. You use your wisdom. Because you can't work with me and you being around someone who's not copacetic. And she did exactly that and said, "Hey," and told that young lady to what's up. Because I tell my spiritual constituents, you have a responsibility, especially to these young people. If you're older, you have a responsibility. And when you see some left shit, speak on it. And let them know, no. Even if they don't listen to you, just know you said it. Because in this universe, people don't say nothing. People don't have wisdom anymore. And she told that young lady, "Don't you go back." And she said she had to say something because the girl said, "Let me get," and I'm preferring, "Let me get myself together. Sprinkle, sprinkle will get me back together." No. Sprinkle, sprinkle. I said, "What?" I said, so that's why she was in that situation. And that what was told to me yesterday sat with me because I ain't been talking about the different situations that I've been hearing. And people be like, "Well, she gets her money. She know what she's talking about." All she's doing is taking various wisdoms and merging them together. But that wisdom is not supposed to be shared in the universe. It's supposed to be shared one-on-one. I was in a Christian charm class. That information was told to us one-on-one in our group, in our cult. That is not to be televised. So therefore it weakens and waters down what women should be doing or whatever. Our spell work. Because you're giving men insight to how a woman moves. So they're going to cause fear and pain to make sure you don't have it. So on social media, that's why you're seeing more and more arrogance and nastiness towards women, because there's too much information out here trying to direct and discuss what a woman is, from a woman submitting, being passive. Where you get, it's none of that is copacetic. Everything dealing with a black woman, or you're masculine, you're this. Black women are not masculine. We're powerful because we are in likeness of the Lord. But now you have third world white women checkpointing black women, just like that weird ritual that happened in front of us with that tennis player, and you got a third world white woman, a Ukrainian, trying to check a black woman, talking about being educated, And 99% of white women already know that black women are educated, but now they want to play in our faces with these third world white women trying to checkmate us. I was just looking at something where a white woman was talking about, yeah, you know, our good niggas and my mammy and this and that fed my children. The fuck? But now you got third world white women coming to town, checkmating a black woman. I was insulted that Vanity Fair, and I don't know if it was an AI talking about that they have the cover as Melania as the Queen of the United States. I said, that is a third world white woman. I'm insulted. But here's my thing. We talked about Kamala Harris like a low down dirty dog for whipping out that pussy everywhere. But we ain't talked about Melania and her prostitution and her hoeing and her being a third world white woman hoe. We don't have the same heat. And this woman is the first, is supposed to be, what is it, the first wife or whatever they call it? I have more respect for Nancy Reagan sucking dicks down than I do for Melania. Because Melania is a third world white woman. And Nancy Reagan kept Reagan right, even through his Alzheimer's. I don't know what the fuck kind of visa Melania is under. Isn't it something called a genius or something? Some kind of a visa that she shouldn't be under to be in America. Because technically she should be basically deported. And we don't have to say allegedly, just look it up. I don't know exactly the name of the visa, but it's some kind of visa where they say she should not have that particular visa because she doesn't have the esteem or the different guidelines. We got Indian women who are off the hinges with black women. And they will tell you in your face, you a nigga, you're this, you're that, da, 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 and be throwing work. And all of this was due to Spellwork coming out and our own people. But was it our own people? Because we need to reevaluate the ranch. A lot of these people on social media that you guys are like, these are black people, these are indigenous people. A lot of them may come from third world countries. A lot of them may come from Caribbean islands. Some of them may be African. Some of them may be coming from Central and South America. So there is not a loyalty to who and what we are. And they will get them on social media and be talking about American shit and how black women, we are masculine, but they're not really an authentic black woman. Just hear me out. We have American black women. Then we have people who coming from other places. And the bottom line is that they could, look, me, I could be third world. I could be from Central South America. Shit, I could be from Mexico. I could be from the Caribbean islands. I could be on certain parts of Africa. Shit, I could be from Pakistan. You don't know where the fuck I'm from. I'm sounding just like this and be like, you know, black women are aggressive. We need to submit to our man. We need to be in polyamorous. We need to do this. We need to do that. How do you fight against something that you don't understand? Meaning, If I am from Colombia and all I know is hardship and pain, I get to America and I'm saying, yeah, you need to be in this polyamorous or sleep with a man, and you need to do this and you need to do that. We're listening to that because we're looking at that woman as an American person. No, what really brought it to my attention was an energy of my client. I asked her her background. Well, where are you from? She's from New York, from Brooklyn. I said, well, where are you from? She said, no, my father is an American black man. My mother is an American woman. I'm having trouble at work, and it's a Caribbean woman harassing me. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, I don't want to get American on her ass and really show her for real Brooklyn. I said, oh. Then we have to understand, dang, I forgot, New York was not third world. New York, the East Coast were American indigenous black people. And then they went in and flooded the East Coast with third world energy, like they're flooding the world now. You got Japan people angry as a motherfucker. Everybody angry because they're bringing in all these impoverished people who are poor and bringing the whole world down because they're bringing them in from their impoverished entities. And we have to be careful of the loyalty. If you have someone like Ashera, who at one time we didn't know what she was, but we just considered her as a black woman, then she is holding on to her Puerto Rican energies and saying that she's Caribbean. I'm Afro-Latina. Then what it is? You have Cardi B playing words. They didn't set this girl up talking about she an Afro-Caribbean. What the fuck is an Afro-Caribbean? I remember when they used to say Caribbean. And we still don't know what the fuck that case was about that she was in. And it was just total ritual, wearing white, wearing polka dots, wearing a red flag with the polka dots, change of hair, change of this. I said, she's a fucking Dominican. And if we want to be cute, call her a fucking Haitian. Now they want to play word games with us. They want to go around in circles with us with this, right? That's why I said, what the fuck was she being sued for? That's like Paris, what's his name? Paris Hilton, the gossip person. He's being sued in Vegas, allegedly. Ain't nobody tripping on that shit. It's just all ritual. And you guys will sit around and be like, oh, Cardi B is black. They're playing word games with us. We don't got time for that. Because it's leading into something else. Now we're going to be out here talking about they Afro-Caribbean. Bitch, you're a Latina. Now you're taking away culture. And I know too many Afro-Latinos who are too proud, and because that energy connects into something else. I'm really suspicious of Haiti. I went back and I was with a spiritual constituent walking with her. She was in Chicago, and she was walking from her place, and then she went, I guess, downtown, I don't know, Chicago, and then the bus was there of the original energies that, I guess the energies, it's a French name. He's supposed to be black. And because I can't remember the name, but, or founded Chicago. And I looked at him. And they said he's Haitian. I said, he ain't Haitian. That is an indigenous man. And then it made me go back to think again. I said, was Haitians, or is Haiti really a tribe that was in America? and they shipped them off to this island that was really a different place. So let's just roll with me for a minute. Just roll with me, because they did it with Liberia. Liberia, I guess, apparently was in what? In Central America, which is in Costa Rica. They lied to the people and said, we're going to send you back home, and sent them to a whole other place, which was in Africa. How in the fuck you don't know that there was a tribe in Chicago? I'm just, hear me out. And it was a Haitian tribe of indigenous people. And they went and got them Haitian people, the tribe, indigenous, shipped them off to the Dominican Republic, or Dominican, and just called it Dominican Republic. But whatever was there, was there. And the people of the Dominican Republic are the original indigenous people. They went, shipped them Haitians there, and then mixed them up with different energies coming out of Africa. And again, let me flip it again. And how do you know the Haitian energy, the Haitian revolution happened in Haiti, and it really didn't happen in the United States, in Chicago somewhere? Which leads into Louisiana and all of that shit. Because out of Chicago, you have, and surprising, you have Chicago people, and they don't talk about it, they ended up in Louisiana, and a whole lot of them in Los Angeles. So did they come out of that Chicago into Louisiana with thinking they really coming from Chicago, but they really coming out of Louisiana into Los Angeles? And we think we know, but we don't know. I'm just talking about the spell work, right? So when we go back to Cardi B and them shenanigans, and that ritual is a ritual, no, I want to know, is she not guilty of her trafficking charges? Of being a mule? Or is she not guilty of drugging them guys? Which one is it? We're just having a conversation. So all I'm saying to you is that you have to be careful as American Black women who's talking for you, because they may be of a different energy and you think they're American Blacks, but they're not. Because going to New York and seeing how white people talk to Black people, a lot of those Black people that them white folks are talking shit to are third worlds. Because American Blacks don't let that shit fly. I was in a meeting yesterday with one of my spiritual constituents at her school, and this is in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, white people, they racist as a motherfucker. And the white people are white. And they try to get you on vocabulary and get frustrated when you're an uppity nigga. Philadelphia white people like ignorant niggas. They don't want you to be uppity. And both of us had on we had on wigs that said we doing too much. And I'm listening to her, how the white woman was talking. I said, oh, she's not used to American black people or black people who got sense. And the sarcasm. And she was talking in air. And I said, you just talking a whole bunch of words. Oh, she was like, I'm not talking a whole bunch of words. Yeah, you are. I asked her, I said, okay, give her the policies and procedures. Well, I have to email them. No, you're not emailing nothing. She gonna pick them up. She gonna pick them up at this time. Well, I'm not gonna have it there. I said, okay, she can pick it up tomorrow. When you're in a place, don't have people email you shit. Just go pick it up. Because they can tell you anything in an email. They can even document shit. They can even pull. Now they have shit on ChatGPT. They can easily have shit typed up. And it's not the policies and procedures of the land. They like third world black people because they can tell you anything. They like third world black women because you go for anything, because you're desperate, because you don't want to go back to a certain energy. Myself and my client, we're American black women. You're not going to come with no shenanigans. They don't want you educated because they don't want to be questioned. That's why the white woman was trying to explain, well, we're like, the fuck? It goes back to the Lord. Most of you women out here are Eves. That's why you guys are under Ashera. That's why your little girls and daughters getting caught the fuck up under Ashera. Because that's an Eve effect. That means your daughters have no wisdom. That means you don't have an open door policy with your daughters to see what the fuck. I used to sit down with my mom and have conversations. And let's say I watch someone like her. I would be talking to my mom. My mom would peep that shit. Wait a minute, hold on, what? My grandmother, if I my grandmother didn't like no hoe. I tell everybody about my birthday. When I had this friend, and my friend came over for my birthday, my grandmother looked at her and went in the kitchen. And I was like, Mama, you want some cake? No. You want some? No. I said, Lord. My friend left. I said, Mama, you want some cake? Yeah. My grandmother didn't play with no hoes. My Aunt Julia just tell you like it is. Oh, you a hoe if your nails are red and your hair is blonde. Oh. I have a cousin. And I was telling her, I was like, this guy treated me this way and this way. She said, maybe it's your hair color. You know, your hair is red and short, and that's very worldly. Older cousin. When I was in charm school, I was in the church, and I'm chewing gum like a motherfucker, and the pastor's wife, because she was the charm school teacher, looked at me and did her mouth like, I was like, what the fuck? You wouldn't have anything like this. Senoritas are winning. They getting them rich men and white men. Because they not doing this dumb shit. Talking about you a pick-me. We all pick-me's. Men are pick-me's. Women are not pick-me's. Men are pick-me's. Okay? Yeah. Who? Oh, I don't know. Why? What's up? What happened? Huh? The cat? Yeah. I have to buy some. I don't have any. Outside is deodorant and toothpaste. I'm just saying, watch your daughters. Watch your daughters. Talk to them. Talk to the girls. Gen Zs are very problematic to talk to. They're too busy trying to throw spell work. I told one of my spiritual constituents, create something. They'll listen. Something better than what's being told on TikTok. She could get her money. I'm not tripping. I'm just saying, watch your daughters. Watch your young ladies. Because they're also talking to their friends who are bad peers, who are also listening to sprinkle, or listening to shit that's inappropriate, or listening to social media. I was minding my business and I was looking at this movie called The Day After. And when I looked at the movie The Day After, when I'm talking about civil disobedience, the movie The Day After came out in 1983, and I remember looking at it, and it was a whole energy from them talking about Russia, Lebanon, nuclear war, nuclear bombs. It was a whole energy. I went back and looked at this movie and I wondered, what in the world, right? When I thought to myself, what in the world? In that movie, everything shut down, including vehicles. Remind you, this is 1983. Everything shut down. Cars stopped moving, everything. Everything went dark. And I said to myself, what in the nuclear code? What is in those wavelengths? What code is in the chemical warfare? What is that? What was so odd were the missiles. And the missiles were just everywhere, meaning in that town. And I said, I don't really understand what happened. Because what they made it appear was that America was trying to hit Russia, but did Russia hit America, or what happened? Because I need to go back and really understand what that was and why it happened. And it was done just all of a sudden. Even the military, some of the military people didn't even know what it is. And then I started to think. I said, is war, and here I go, I'm Johnny come lately. Is war a social experiment to introduce or to how can I say, to do an experiment on new products? Because I said, how do you know if something works if you don't try it on people? So in all these wars that they're having, and they use chemical warfare and drugs and guns, it's just nothing but an experiment. Hiroshima, the Nazis, whatever, is all an experiment for the next level. AI has probably been used in military. Tactics, all of that used. And when I talk, I'm talking about fear. See that fear? So when I seen everything shut down, I said, what the fuck? Now we have automatic vehicles. I mean, it shut down radios, TV. I mean, literally vehicles stalled. I said, I can imagine with these automatic vehicles, these Teslas, they'll just explode in a fucking nuclear war. 5G, 6G, now they're out here making 6G. Radiation, what the fuck is radiation? But they use that shit in chemotherapy? What is the code? Everything has a code. 9/11, can we go back to it just for a minute? Was that a nuclear war? There were no plane pieces, nothing. Either over there in the Pentagon, none of that. They give us scripted stories and scripted people. How do we know those clips that we're seeing that it really happened? Do you notice your civilians? Do you notice that you've never heard this civilian say, "Hey, what's that?" Everything is orchestrated. The people who died from the chemical warfare, meaning the after effect, the firefighters, the police officers, your regular civilians who made it out, and most of them are dead today, was that radiation? Was that nuclear? And then you start to match it up with AIDS and how that looks. And the other thing is very interesting is I was looking at the AIDS energy. How come we didn't connect that it was mostly white men who died from AIDS? When you go back and look at it, 80% were white. That's a cold game and a cold test. Which HIV today, at any time, if they're getting any medicines or anything, they could switch it and turn it into AIDS and kill all you niggas, allegedly. We just talking. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me go back. I'm just asking questions, right? I'm just trying to figure this out. What in the chemical warfare, and when we go back to 9/11, because then let's go to Katrina. Katrina energy was last month and it was ignored. And different principalities, aristocrats, socialites, and whoever was supposed to be part of the celebration, but it didn't happen. It was abused and obstructed by LaToya Cottrell and that bullshit, and then the oil spill that happened in the towns close to New Orleans. They're out there saying that it was a couple of more fires and explosions that happened at that damn Smitty plant. And they don't want us to really understand the details. A spiritual custodian was telling me that Smitty have their own attorneys and kind of supplied their own attorneys to some of her family members. I said, that's very interesting. They gave them outdated food from the pandemic and outdated wipes from the pandemic 2020. Angola is going to accept ICE people. What is it? I hate to say that they're the immigrants. I don't want to say that they're criminals. That makes a lot of sense in St. Gabriel of them opening up the women's prison again, right? I told you to follow the money. Their mayor have the audacity to talking about in so many words. He's looking for resources. Y'all done sat up and hid that goddamn Smitty explosion from the rest of the world as it flows into the Gulf of Mexico and other parts of the waters. That explosion looked like a nuclear war. Katrina, why are we not talking about the civilians that said we heard a bomb? We heard an explosion at the levees. My spiritual constituent said, I heard it. She's not even in New Orleans. She said she heard it from where she was at in her town. Why are we not talking to the civilians that said we heard an explosion? Do you know how many people are saying that? But the funny thing is that why are they not talking about the murders? Was Katrina a time for murder? Was it a time to get rid of the elders? Was it a time to get rid of the inmates? A lot of elders died, but not from drowning. They were talking about elders being found tied up. And then some of them were talking about it's some kind of energy being tied up to be above waters. You know, like they were talking about elders being tied up, somehow bounding themselves up on the ceiling. Who does that? Finding elders tied up in chairs, on chairs. People shot, murdered, shot in the head. Hearing gunshots everywhere. Asphyxiation, all of that. But not from drowning. Children kidnapped and trafficked, don't know where in the fuck they went. Young ladies disappearing. Body parts missing. They want to lie about what was going on in the Superdome because they don't want it investigated that law enforcement was part of the mayhem. And part of kidnapping of children, allegedly. They don't want to talk about that some of them people wasn't from Louisiana that was up in that Superdome cutting the fuck up. And the same thing was going on in Texas, right? What is so interesting is the spirits that have uprooted and walking, not in purgatory, they don't know they're dead. And people from Louisiana, as of lately, have been talking about how there's a lot of supernatural things that are happening, especially on jobs. And someone hit me up, a spiritual constituent, asked me, dude, do spirits eat food? I said, they sure as fuck do. They drink alcohol and eat food. Yes. And funny enough, she's not the only one saying this. What is being told, what is happening in the last couple of weeks, especially on Labor Day, the spirits have uprooted themselves and partying with them. At the barbecues with them, messing with the music, turning the music off, turning the music on, wanting different. And so the person said they was interested in bounce music. They said they're focusing at this particular part. They was focused on dirty rice. Everybody's talking about how these particular spirits or ghosts are eating up the food, but it's food that is homegrown Louisiana stuff and drinking up the alcohol. And some of y'all be like, oh, they just crazy. Ain't nobody crazy, is what it is. And she was asking me, she said, can we make them go back? I said, no. I said, if they're not hurting you, no. I said, they probably don't even know that they're dead. I said, how do you know that you're not dead? And they're wondering, who in the fuck are you? How do you know that you're not messing with their music? And they're like, what the hell? And turning it back on. How do you know that that explosion didn't kill you? And you're walking, and you're like, you know, I don't like this music. Let me go fuck with this shit. And they're like, oh, what the fuck's going on? On the other side. You tripping, they over here eating all the damn food. Yeah, because they alive, you're dead. You think you on a job and you looking on a camera and you're like, dang, the food is, or this is happening. I explained to them, I said, that's the same thing that's going on in Vegas. They fucked up Vegas and the energy of Vegas, and the dead is walking. They're uprooting the ghosts, the goblins, the entities, whatever you guys want to call it, the deities, was it the apparitions, whatever you guys want to call it, demons, whatever. They're fucking around in Vegas, messing with the ground, messing with those buildings, bulldozing old shit, and those ghosts are walking. Lake Mead, water receded, old barrels, old bodies then uprooted itself from old gangster shit. Yeah, that's why Vegas is fucked up. Entities knocking down fucking wire poles, money loss. They're wandering because some of them spirits don't even know that they're dead, and they just believe that they're in the hustle and bustle of Vegas, partying, drinking, gambling, and then you're killing the old Vegas, and now they're lost. I'm not going to sit up here and say it was the Chinese people, because Chinese people like to gamble. I was just looking at a report in China McDonald's, and the China McDonald's is upset because the elderly keep coming in, cutting up. Meaning they're gambling in McDonald's. They don't talk about that. How they, in China, they didn't took over McDonald's, and they come in there and take up the seats and be gambling. You go into some of these Chinese restaurants, they'll have a back room, they up in there gambling. I was in one yesterday. I was walking, I was all up in their banquet room looking at them. They was up in there playing cards and shit. I said, they love to gamble, Filipinos and Chinese. It's not them. It's something else that didn't came through. And Chinese have an interesting perspective on spirits than Koreans. Japanese are a motherfucker with them spirits and entities. They believe in some shit. I've seen that. I don't be fucking around with no Japanese spirits. Them things will kill you. But I was explaining to her, like, that's exactly what's going on. And I told her, I said, in reality, everybody in Louisiana, especially your town, y'all need to be setting out food and alcohol because they're walking. It's okay. But I said, but you can't make them go back. They're not going back. I said, because it's something with this energy of Katrina, in addition to what happened in the French Quarter. I said, and I told her, I said, them white folks probably sat up there and mustered up them dang ghosts. And then I said, that explosion probably even rocked the earth. It's something with that explosion. You know, we was just having that conversation, right? And I told her, I said, I said, these white folks, especially in the South, be cracking me up with their Ku Klux Klan asses. I said, they have the audacity to want to do work when they want to do it and use our ancestors to do the work. I said, what is very so interesting, and I was explaining to someone, I said, church used to be at night for black people, especially during the antebellum and Jim Crow, whatever we want to call it, or, Willie Lynch period. It used to be at night. And white people caught wind and peeped the work because the work was working when church was at night. That's why sometimes you had the white folks want to sit up in there and listen. However, they created that Ku Klux Klan. Ku Klux Klan did not ride during the day. They rode at night and fucked with the churches to dismantle Spellwork. So they created their own Spellwork by causing fear. Black people wasn't afraid of no fucking talk about ghosts. How can black people be afraid of ghosts when they dealt with spirit? The fucked up thing about the Ku Klux Klan, they don't want to talk about the Jews that was part of the Ku Klux Klan, and they don't want to talk about the hybrid Indians, Native Americans that was part of the Ku Klux Klan, right? Your preachers, your white preachers was part of the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, law enforcement, judges. It was just a whole cult. And the Ku Klux Klan made an agreement with the Jews and the Chinese to get in with us, to find us out, so they can come in at night and tear shit up. That's why the Chinese were able to live. When you go back to sinners, if you kind of look at the under of it and kind of twist it backwards and forwards, you will soon to understand, hey, the Chinese brought the white people to blacks. The Jews brought them to blacks. The hybrid Indians brought them to blacks. Ku Klux Klan. Right? We just talking, having a conversation, because we got to understand the world and what they're enforcing on us, the fear. Everything is fear. The world is fear. And they up there saying that Trump is missing. I said, is he missing like Gavin Newsom? Because if you want to find Gavin Newsom, just go into Tenderloin somewhere. I'm just kidding. When you look at Gavin Newsom's old interviews, you knew he was on something. Shit. They want uneducated frequencies. When I peeped at Marlon Wayans, they were hyping up the fact that he was getting his high school diploma. I said, oh, that's ill-mannered. They could have kept that where it is. That was a ritual for us. But it's also scary, because in reality, a lot of black men didn't graduate from high school. I'm not going to even play the game, but it was ill-mannered. But you can clearly see he's not dumb. And you can clearly see how it can influence if people say, I don't have to go to school, I could just make money. That's a ritual. But he comes from a template. He comes from a foundation. So you got to ignore that part. I always said he was interesting. I said, I wonder, was he in special ed? Not in a bad way. Just his whole energy. But then I was confused again. I said, didn't he go to high school with Omar Epps? Did Omar Epps graduate? What's going on here? Stop that. Can you wait a minute? Thank you. I went to go see the movie Highest to the Lowest, Spike Lee, Denzel Washington. I don't believe Spike Lee wrote that movie at all. I think they used the likeness of him. I think they tried to pretend it was him. I don't know what money sponsored that movie. I believe it was some Muslims, Islamics, or whosoever, because that movie didn't make no fucking sense. I can't even tell you what the fuck the movie was about at all. All I know is I was up in there with mixed company and I was uncomfortable. And I was uncomfortable not because of mixed company, but because of the context of the movie. And I know those liberal white folks that was up in there, like Denzel Washington, and being in Southern California, you don't know who is who and what is what. You don't know if some of them white folks that work with Denzel Washington, directed anything. And when they're older, they'll go back because they remember who those people are. Or they may like the likeness of them. And they was up in there with their wives and stuff. And probably even know who Spike Lee is. You just don't know the nature, right? And I was looking at a lot of them. And I can tell they were there because they were nostalgic of, oh, Spike Lee. Oh, Denzel Washington. Okay, let's go see this. Them white folks were sitting there like, oh. We can say that I understand the technique of what they was trying to say in the movie, but the movie appeared to be a filler. The movie it seemed like it was just to tell us Islam is the right way. The Denzel Washington played who? David, aka King David, and I'm sitting there like, okay, so we're gonna play games and say Hebrew. Jeffrey Wright played the Muslim with character and wisdom. Because then they made sure to have their 5% or 7-star Allah shit going on. And all of that mess and praying. It was like they was trying to make Denzel Hebrew David to be like he don't give a fuck about nothing, because it was all about kidnapping and whatever, 7 million and all that shit. We seen Ice Spice. They let her say a couple of words because she's on the verge of alleged retardation. And then they had Princess Nokia. I said, now I know why she's under ritual. They had his wife that it seemed like she just stood in one place and changed an outfit and then went into another place. It was just kind of like, huh? Then it seemed like it was AI. ASAP Rocky role didn't even make sense. It was, and I'm like, okay. Then I got confused about Denzel Washington and his features and body. I said, is this Russell Simmons? Then his facial features kept changing. Then it looked like he had a stroke. Then he had an overbite. Then I started noticing his face again. I said, what the hell is going on? Then he was talking. Then he would sound like Denzel, but not Denzel. He sounded like Russell Simmons. I don't know what the fuck was going on. The 7 mil, I would assume that's connected to the Allah effect. It was just like, what? And it was an interesting way to end 2 careers. Then I said, this movie could have been better if they would have focused on the biblical Ishmael and Isaac. But I will say this shit. They know fucking well ASAP Rocky is somewhere down the line belong to Denzel Washington. And they can try to be funny about it. But somebody used some fucking Denzel Washington DNA. And I said, they being funny in this movie, mentioning that, yeah, we look alike, da-da-da. Look, art imitates life. But what I will say is this. I was like, have these niggas been looking at me? Because he was in the car with his good son. We're going to say the good son. And his son was on a cell phone. And he tells his son, get off the cell phone. Because he was basically telling his son to get out of air. He said, no, get back on Earth. I'm paraphrasing, get back on Earth. He kept saying, get back on Earth. And I was suspicious. I said, there's an energy behind that. I said, have they been watching me? You know, we get paranoid. They been watching me? Because it wasn't like, okay, back on Earth. It was like, there's a philosophy. You're in air. Get the fuck up out of air and get your ass back on Earth. So I said, so therefore they're understanding that being in air is fucking up the whole system because we need to get back on Earth. I said, oh Lord. So anyway, I said the movie would have been better if they would have did the Hagar and Sarah effect, the Isaac and Ishmael effect. Okay, A$AP Rocky plays Ishmael. His good son plays Isaac. He's so harder for money because his record business is failing. He has an insurance policy for $7 million on his son. If he went and he sacrificed his son, he have Ishmael because he don't know Ishmael is his son because he had a one-night stand or whatever with this woman, didn't give a fuck about Hagar. And then, so anyway, he hired A$AP Rocky to murder Isaac, his good son, and then for the $7 million energy, he kills the son, sacrifices him, and then after that, a whole other story comes about it because then he finds out, oh shit, you my son, da 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 da. And then it goes into a whole other energy that Ishmael ends up running the record company because he gets his inheritance that was promised. That movie could have went a whole other Spike Lee way. Okay, because again, the movie appeared not to be a Spike Lee. Okay, but the likes. Or it could have went with him talking about he Jesus Christ superstar. It could have went that his name is David or King David, and he could have had the likeness of people. He could have had a woman who played Juanita Bynum, but it's his wife, right? But Juanita Bynum, the likes of her is a whole lesbian married to King David, which is Denzel Washington. And then Jeffrey Wright could have played James Cleveland, sleeping with all the little boys and shit in the church. Just bring it out, bring it out, bring it out. Then he's in this cult. There's a white cult, and the white cult is teaching him how to put spellwork on the congregation, which is the likeness of Paula White and T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen. They set up another preacher, sacrificed that preacher, but it's really Zachary Timms. This could have went to a whole other energy. I'm just talking. And really push the church situation of what is going on. Okay? And then have a whole other situation, have singers like, not so much the Clarksons, but more like the meditation singers from back in the day. I'm telling you. They could have went all type of ways with this energy instead of what they did, and they made it look like a filler just to push the Islamic energy. And talking about Russell Simmons, y'all need to go look at Indonesia and around the world and all these Asian countries. I think they done opened up a new Def Jam, especially in Indonesia. They over there singing and dancing like black women. They over there doing what's it called, a Fetty Wap or Millie Wap or whatever it's called, doing all type of shit. There's no music here in America. The music is across the world. They playing in our faces, huh? Just like Nike is using American stylists or American styles and putting African prints on it, and then up there behind this African kid who's making fake African prints, because we already know that the real Africa is not Africa, but they're gonna start playing in your faces and say that you're an American and you're appropriating Africa, because you're going to get Indians and Chinese say you're not African, we're African. That's coming. But peep out the new designs popping up, and it's all of these new Chinese Africans who are gay and shit, because Nike is doing a collaboration with one, and they're playing in your face doing old 1988 and 1990s Benetton style clothes. Talking about this is the new thing. I said this is totally Benetton and Esprit shit. Cultural shit. They done went back into the 90s the Afrocentric shit. Now I'm going to put that on a shelf. Creating African scholar fashions. Bullshit. Now they want fashion. Now they're creating fashion to be exclusive now, and they're going to want you to pay for it to see Vogue shit and all of this shit. They're playing in your face. If you are a designer in America, you have perfect goods here to create beading, fashion, materials, whatever. Don't get caught up in India and Africa and the shenanigans, because you will soon to find out that everything is pulled from America. When I sat up and peeped that I said they didn't went back to the Saint Lunatics. And then putting alleged African patterns on it. We don't know what shit is. I was very interested to see the chastity belts or the apron energy in Africa. But we don't know, because everything is mixed up. I don't trust no type of fashions coming out of Africa after I didn't see a lot of American styles. They've always done it. My spiritual constituents who traveled around saying, what is up with everybody stealing American style? We don't get to see people different anymore? Don't believe shit in fashion, because it's all a setup. Just like Law Roach, I told you he's a whole hack. You see Fenty is going to be in India now. But man, I'm concerned Rihanna is an Indian. They have a new frequency called ozone therapy. Check that out. It's supposed to heal everything, allegedly. Women out here taking testosterone shots to have a good workout and have sex. So you want to be a whole man so you could work out and have sex? And you fucking going through menopause? Shit, it was stem cells for a minute. And this neon streamer dude. Why everybody fucking with him? What is he again to push out Kai and the rest of the black influencers? And why would Justin Bieber be on his shit? Justin Bieber on that crystal meth. Anyway. More and more in history is being brought out how we're going to say black people, indigenous people, African people, Caribbean people then sat up and taught white people how to use melanated skin and teeth and hair in fashion, in furniture. Have y'all been peeping that? We taught them how to kill us because we were already using our own skin and hair and using our own hair in materials and threads and shit like that. Some of them, that furniture was also created by our own. Powdering our teeth and shit like that. I'll get to that later. Anyway, this is Weird Renegade Witches Blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done.